The Major League Cricket draft is just weeks away, and it's a great opportunity for American cricketers, especially those who have represented USA internationally. Joining me today is one of those guys, Nosthush Kenjige. Nosh, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on again.
Hi Nate, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, I've known you now for what, 5 years almost. I guess 4.5 years since I first met you in Morrisville, North Carolina, here at Church Street Park. And so it's great to continue to converse with you about some exciting developments in cricket in the USA.
Yeah, we've come a long way, right? So I think the first time I met you, it was in North Carolina in 2017 or 18.
Yeah,
And I think it was a road where we were looking to get ODI status, break
that's
into the
right.
world. So if you look back on those 5 years, it's been quite a journey, and it's good to have the well-wishers, the supporters right along.
Yeah, it's that was a very exciting time because the achievement of ODI status means so much. It still does mean so much, and USA have now just finished 36 ODIs since achieving that status in 2019. So that's absolutely that's fantastic that you guys were able to achieve that. I remember the buzz around the team. You had Pubudu as the coach at the time. Everybody seemed so close. Everybody seemed like they really got along well.
Yeah, I think it was a great vibe that we had back then with Pubudu, like you mentioned. I think that was the starting point of where things were headed towards. We just as players, we knew we were headed to better places, and everybody had that kind of vision where we said we want to be where we are right now. And at that point, it seemed like a big task just because we had never played ODIs before. So to compete against the ODI teams that had been playing ODIs for the last 10, 15 years, it was going to be an uphill task. But I think after the 36 games, I can say I think we should have won more games. Definitely, I don't think we played to our potential right through. I think we showed what we were capable of in glimpses. But throughout the 36 games, there was a lot of ups and downs. You don't want that as a team
Right.
with respect to results. I think if we had just kept just that I would say a equilibrium kind of a thing where we were more consistent with our performances, I'm sure we could have ended at the right part of the table. I know there are a few more games to go, but it looks like we'll finish in the mid-table.
Right.
So we'll play the qualifiers, but it's a good experience playing against those higher-ranked teams. Like I said, they had more experience in those stages. So every time we competed with them and won games, like if you see, we won games in Namibia, Scotland. So those were the good games that we had. But I just hope that we would have done it consistently.
How much do you think COVID 2020, you had such a long gap in between games there for a while. How much do you think that played into you guys kind of not really having a lot of momentum, not being able to keep your momentum, kind of having to hurry a bunch of games into a shorter period of time when you finally did start playing the games again? I mean, Oman got off to a great start, and they were the front runners for a very, very long time. And it was very tough to see anybody trying to catch them. I believe Scotland has passed them now. But how much do you think that played into that?
Yeah, it was definitely strange times. I mean, there was a period where we didn't play any cricket for 1.5 years, and with the new coach coming in, Jack had just come in back then, so it was a challenge on his part too because we couldn't train at all together. So I
Right.
think there's a period of 12 to 15 months where we would just do video calls, just train in our own centers, and we didn't get to train as a team. I'm not giving it as an excuse, but if
Right.
you compare it to other teams like Oman, they get to train together every day, and that makes a difference.
Big
But
difference.
yeah, big difference because you get to know their games better. You're training as a group, push each other. But as it stands here in the US, that's one of the challenges that we have. We don't get to train together.
Right.
But I think we did the best of what we were um, up against. Like we as cricketers, we can't be complaining about not playing together and things like that. In times of COVID, like there were people who had rough times, like 100 times worse. They had
Sure.
lives. Yeah, so I don't think it's right on our part to complain. But at that point, it was a big gap. So going into the games after the break, that definitely killed the momentum. But again, it gave us enough time to be better in times that we didn't play games.
Right. Well, you know, you mentioned that you were unable to practice together for that amount of time. Fitness is something you're really well known for, keeping yourself fit and working really hard. You have such a great reputation in that regard, as being somebody who doesn't get outworked by somebody else. How much more important did fitness become during the COVID months and maybe, year?
Yeah, I think during those times it just shows why fitness was the key. Because if you didn't play cricket, then if you don't work on fitness also, then your game just starts to drop, and before you know it, you're not up there in terms of skill because your body doesn't allow you to do what it used to do earlier.
Right.
Um, I think just in my case, like I've always like since the last 6 7 years working with Bert and the others, it's just given me that kind of confidence that I've worked hard enough to perform when I get onto the field. So when I
Right.
work with respect to my fitness, I just know I'm putting in the work, and that's important for me. I just like to compete with myself. So I just want to get better every time that I'm doing something. It's just a kind of thing where Bert challenges me and tells me this was your score 3 months ago. Where are you now? So just giving those pointers and helping me get better all along.
Right. And Bert, you mentioned him a bunch of times right there. Looking back to 2017 or 2018 when I met you, and then looking today at USA cricket, the culture of cricket in the USA, the culture of elite cricket in the USA, uh, there's a big difference to me, from where I'm sitting, looking at the fitness of the players today versus how it was just 5 years ago. And I'm sure even then there's probably a big difference between then and 5 years prior. So
Right.
fitness has become a big focus in cricket in recent years. Bert, I believe he's done a really good job of bringing that culture in to USA, and also to MLC.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. Yeah, I think more than what he brings to the table, I think it's upon the players as well. Like if we can buy into that culture, then it helps that much. Like as a
Right,
coach, as a conditioning coach, there's only so much that he can push.
right,
After that, it's up to you. So I think for the players who have bought into what he's saying and bought into the kinds of things that he wants to bring to the team, I think all of us have shown tremendous growth. If like you said, like if you compare what we are today and what we were 5 years ago, if we were the same that we were 5 years ago, then there's no way we would have performed and able to consistently throw those performances that's needed at that level.
right.
A testament to that. But again, like you got to keep getting better. At no point do you feel like you're the fittest or you've reached the top. There's always something higher to aim at, and I think it's crucial that we just keep getting better, 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 and better.
Sure, sure. Yeah, there have been players on the team over the years who've always had that work ethic. You're one of those guys. Elmore always seemed to be very, very fit, but again, now I'm seeing it in the young players, especially, at least the guys at the top tier, the younger fellows at the top tier. A lot of those guys seem to be already embracing the fitness. Like Dominic Ricky, I had not heard of Dominic Ricky. The first time I heard about Dominic Ricky was he had an awesome beep test score. And then I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, who's this fella? And then all of a sudden he's in the conversation for playing for USA. People have come to know about him through his cricket. I don't think there's any coincidence that he's very fit and he's always in the conversation for making the USA team.
Yeah, that's right. Like you said, I think by when we are putting so much emphasis on fitness, it just asks the other guys who are the juniors to step up their game right now. Like if you see the ones who have made the team in the last couple of years, it's all the guys who have been much fitter, and
Right,
it's going to raise the bar that way. And it's good for USA cricket that everybody realizes how important it is to work on fitness and conditioning. At the same time, yeah, like you mentioned about Dominic, I think the reason he got into the US team was because he was working on his fitness. That implies that he's disciplined and dedicated, motivated to do well. So I think it's a byproduct of what you want to achieve. It's
right,
both be skill wise, and if you think fitness plays a role in your cricket, then you will do it to make
right.
sure that you up your skills.
Yeah, this is an interesting conversation I've had with a lot of friends recently because there's a lot of controversy about this. internationally, we're seeing a lot of bigger nations using fitness as a prerequisite to get into the team. This is elite level cricket here, and there are teams leaving out very, very good players because they haven't met their fitness requirements. And there's a really good conversation ongoing about whether this is necessary in cricket, whether it's necessary to do that. Well, if you look at other sports, it's kind of self-evident. You look at soccer, you look at basketball, American football, rugby. It's so important in those sports, and it's so self-evident in those sports that you don't really need to have a test for it. You don't have to have performance tests for those sports. It's just, can you stay on the field that long or not? In cricket, it's a little bit different. We have a long history of cricketers who, well, I mean, they don't have the most amazing fitness. Some of them have just natural talent that helps them overcome that. I don't want to name a bunch of guys' names, but I'm sure you've got the same guys going through your head as I do. But they were really great batters or really great bowlers. But to me, the biggest part of fitness is, can you stay in the game? Are you going to get hurt? Because if you're going to take a team of 14 or 15 people to another nation on a 20-hour flight away from you, you got to kind of count on the fact that none of them are going to get hurt because of fitness issues. Or if you're playing in UAE in the middle of August or something, fitness matters an awful lot.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a very interesting debate. Like, if you ask me, so if you're looking at certain situations, so in certain situations you look at the top batters, let's say in the Indian team, and let's say he doesn't pass a fitness test that just says beep test, you need to score a 17. Let's say he gets a 15. But then the next day he turns up for the game and then he scores the highest number of runs in the whole tournament. He comes out being man of the series. If you didn't pick him, then he wouldn't have got those runs for you. And because you picked him, even though he failed the test, he won you the games. The other way to look at it is, you don't pick him, and then you have these rules where you say, okay, you don't make 17 beat tests, you don't get to play. You're setting standards for the team,
right?
And you expect everybody to be above a certain range.
Sure.
It's hard to tell which one is the right thing to do, because let's say somebody is working off a lower threshold. Let's say somebody is making a 14 in a beep test.
Yeah.
For him to get to 17, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But I think if he can show that he's bought into the system and he's trying to get better and making progress, let's say he's getting 15s, 16s, closing in on 17s, then I think that's something you can consider, because he's working on it.
Sure.
Just because his threshold was that much lower.
Yeah, right. His baseline was bad. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
But I think if I was the coach, I would do that. I would look at what kind of progress you have made in the last 2-3 years. Does it show the kind of commitment that you need in order to be in the team? But again, the higher you go, the harder it's going to be. Like, if you put out the higher score and then there's somebody lower, then it's harder to go reach that threshold level. So it's an important talk, even with respect to the talk that we were having about the South African batter getting dropped because she didn't hit the 2K in the specific time.
Right.
I think she was supposed to run a 2-kilometer run in 8.5 minutes or somewhere.
She missed it by like 17 seconds or something. Yeah.
Yeah. But even with respect to that, do you want to drop your main batter because she missed it by 17 seconds? You're not going to run a straight 2-kilometer run in a match. But at the same time, you want to set standards. So you want to set an example for the team that whoever passes will get through.
Yeah.
But a fair look would be saying, okay, what did she run a year ago?
Yeah.
And how has the improvement been in terms of percentage or any yardstick that you look at?
Sure.
Maybe that can be taken in, but it's again up to the management. And as a player, like, all I can do is keep giving my best. And if I know I gave it my best and I didn't succeed in doing something, then there's hardly anything you can do. You can just improving from your part. So as a player, I would say, yes, you want to look at what the thresholds are, but you keep giving it your best. And then you have to pass it at some point if you keep giving your best.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I like that way of thinking about it. I prefer that way. She
Right.
did recently lose about 20 or 25 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me that shows she's working really hard. And but like you said, the whole point of the standard is to bring everybody up, is to improve the
Mm-hmm.
fitness of everybody. And
Right.
so if that's happening, if that's what it's doing,
Mm-hmm.
it's I mean, can you imagine a time where like maybe Inzamam had to be held to a 17 beep test?
Right.
How long would it take if all of a sudden they implemented that plan in the middle of his career? How
Mm-hmm.
long would it take Inzamam to get to a 17 beep test? It would have taken him a while. It takes a lot of people a while to get to that standard.
Right. Yeah, 100%. But I think, yeah, the other way to look at it is if Inzamam had been told that you have to get to 17 in a year or so, and he worked towards it, I think we'd have seen him be a much better product of himself. We'd have got more
Right.
runs out of him. He would have been the best that he could possibly be.
Sure.
So
I,
maybe he could have scored 2500s instead of 20. That
right.
it's maybes and ifs and buts, but at the end of the day, I think it's just satisfaction in your mind knowing you have given your best.
Sure. Sure.
What do you say? I don't know if you agree on those lines. What was your take on these straight lines and saying you're in or out depending on?
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. You're showing progress. You have a standard. Yes. Are there other players left out because are there other players who are worthy who are left out because they didn't meet the standard? No, or we'd be talking about them. You know what I mean? So I think it's not such a systemic issue that if you hold the rules hard and fast, if you stick to these rules, it's going to
Mhm.
degrade the culture. I don't think that's what that would happen. And if you look at the coaches, you got the selectors and you got the coaches. I think if you look at a coach is aware that their time with that team is going to be brief. A
Mhm.
coach's career with a team is like a player's career with the team. It's like the average player is in up and maybe there for 2 years.
Right.
Same thing with the coach. They're not going to be around a long time. So the coaches, I don't think, are going to want to cut people out who are going to help them get the win that they need to get. You
Right.
know, and obviously that's you have to create the culture though, and that's a difficult thing for a coach to do when he is also fighting for his or her
Mhm.
job.
Right.
So I think the coaches would probably be like, I don't think there are many coaches out there who would say, yes, let's cut this player because they didn't reach the standard we set for fitness, even though they almost did and they lost 20 pounds. That's
Yeah.
hard to do.
Right. One thing I would say is, but if you're lower than the limit that's been set, then you better make sure that you're putting twice the effort.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you want to see the person put in the effort and actually try to be better. Like
Sure.
if he if it's just excuses and then if he's trying to say I'm not in, so I'm not going to try hard enough, and not going to make. I think that's where the attitude comes in.
Sure.
A good attitude towards it, and you have a growth mindset where you're saying you want to be better. Then maybe I think you it's up to the coach, but maybe he can consider it. Yeah.
Well, attitude matters a lot on the
Uh-huh.
ground, especially in the middle
Yeah.
of a game. Like, how many times have you seen cricket's a funny sport. Everyone says it. The game's not over till it's done. How many times have you seen things turn on a dime in a game? If you don't have the right attitude, that's not likely to happen. You're not likely to pull yourself out of a ditch in a game if you don't have the right attitude. And I think that's a big part of the fitness thing is, okay, we've agreed on this as a common goal for the whole team. And if you're not on board with that and you're not showing that you have the right attitude, how do we know you're going to have the right attitude on the ground?
Right. Yeah. I think attitude plays an equally important role. Like you said, if you have the right attitude, then it's easier to beat all these test scores and things like that because that helps your overall improvement and gets your
Right.
skills up. So yeah, it goes hand in hand. It'll be hard for me to pick sides if there should be a straight linear curve which says if you're this side you're in, if you're this side you're out. Good, I don't have to make those decisions myself. So for
Right.
me, yeah, I know what the yardsticks are. I just try to be the best that I can be in all those specific areas.
Sure. Sure.
So it's the coaches and the management's headache. So I'll leave it to the coaches and birds to decide what they want to do with the rules and things like that.
There you go. That's a good way to think about it too. The left arm spinner role in USA cricket is so deep around the country. So this ties into the fitness thing, and this ties into improving yourself and having a good attitude, because there's so many good left arm orthodox spinners in the USA, and it is a role that tends to dominate or do very, very well in associate cricket for many, many reasons. One of those being there's a lot of right-handed batters. Another reason being they're not playing on flat roads in associate cricket, you know. So left arm orthodox spin role is so important. With your fitness and your approach to fitness and your approach to improving yourself, does the knowledge that you have of stiff competition against you, does that play into how hard you work?
Um, so I've never thought of it from an outsider point of view, but for me, it's always been, I look at myself. So for me, my biggest competitor would be me. If I was the same person or the same bowler that I was 3, 4 years ago, then I don't think I would have performed. I would have got those performances in like how I've got it recently. But again, not just judging by the performances, because for me, I think it's more about the process of what I'm trying to improve and what I'm trying to work on. Like there have been times when I've given it my best in terms of preparation in all levels, and then I've gone to tournaments and not done well.
Right.
So it's hard for you to control the performances, but it's easy to see if you're going through your processes right.
Right.
So if you ask me in terms of bowling, yeah, it's a crucial role. It's something that your team demands of you all the time. So for me, when how I look at it is how I can add more value to the team.
Yeah.
In what way can I be the best that I can be and bring the best to the team? So I think in the last 2, 3 years, I've seen um, the things that I've worked on is, I would say, bowling in the power plays, because that's something I've done recently. That's something I've improved in the recent times. Bowling in the death too, and then in terms of fielding says a lot about how much you put into the game. Like you can always be a better fielder if you put in the effort. So I
Right.
think that's something I want to be the best that I can be. That's helped by fitness and agility and things like that. And also batting, like if, yeah, like you said, in this era, I think if you're a bowler, you're always expected to score. And I wouldn't say I was complacent in my batting in the first few years, but I don't think I did enough to um, get better at. I think in Dallas, where I stay now, I have enough facilities where I have enough. Jack was here. I'd been working with Pugudu, and there have been Sushant helps. So Sushant lives here too. So
Yeah.
I have a lot of groups. I have a big group that I can rely on and get my batting better. So because I could improve so much in my batting, it was easier, because if I just put in the time, then I could get better at it. And I just wanted to make sure this whole product was getting better all the time. So it's
Right.
irrespective of bowling, batting, fielding, whatever that the team requires, it just keep getting better.
Yeah, absolutely. So you just said, it's so important. The process is so important. Just working hard and trying to get better. And you talked about improving your batting a lot there. You really did improve your batting a ton this past year, in minor league cricket. You shot up to a 140 strike rate. You were scoring really important runs for your team late in the games. You're used to being in that situation with USA and ODI cricket, batting late in the games. And I think Peter Della Penna said you have the most not outs in USA cricket history, which which it shows that you're batting late. You're used to batting late. But in ODI, in associate ODI cricket, it's so common to go late into a game, to go late into an innings, to have your 8, 9, 10, 11 batters in the game. It happens all the time in associate cricket. In fact, I believe you guys over the course of your 36 ODI games, I believe you averaged somewhere around 8 wickets lost every single game, on average. So the tail batted a lot and it does in associate cricket. We know that. And Jack, actually, if you look at the batting stats from before Jack to the batting stats of the team after Jack improved the batting stats. I think it was about 20% or so, as far as, production. So we know that he's a good batting coach. We know that he knows a lot about that stuff. But you mentioned working with Pubudu before that. How long did you feel like you had to work before you started to see results? Because it seems like just in the last year or so, we've really seen your batting take a whole new level. Like you're very creative. I remember the ramp shot you did in minor league this year, that went right over the keeper's head for how long did it take for you? How long did you trot along until you got to a point where now you're really confident when you bat and you have a plan?
Yeah, I think it's been quite a while coming. If you ask me, I've just been believing and working on my batting for the last 4 or 5 years, ever since Puguru came into the picture. There used to be times when I used to go to Canada to work with Puguru, and he was always welcoming. I think there were 2, 3 trips that we did from New York to Canada just to work on the batting. There have been a lot of people who have supported me during these batting, the kind of batting that I've improved. It helped me improve my batting. I think Pugudu comes to mind. I think recently even Jack as well. I think he gave me the kind of confidence that I needed. Said I could definitely bat and just to express myself. And it helped that he was in Dallas too.
Right.
So I worked with him here during the week. Like I said, the guys here, Corey is here, so I've been taking some pointers from him. Sushant is here. Um, but I don't think I'm anywhere close to where I want to be at. I don't think I'm anywhere close to the finished product that I am at right now. But after working so hard for 3 to 4 years, it was very rewarding when I started to score runs in major league, minor league, and also in for the USA. I think I've got few scores in the last 1 year or so.
Right.
I think it was just pleasing because when you see the results, then you kind of enjoy doing it more, even more after that. So um, about building the innings and things, I think I'm still figuring out how I want to build innings and play in different situations and scenarios. Even the minor league, they were the management and the captain and the vice captain. They put me in situations that I enjoyed and that were challenging enough for me to go in and play as per the situation and get my team out of the hole. So it's the aspect in my cricket where I think I can improve a lot more, and that's something I want to continue to do. Again, in terms of runs, there will be times when I'll score. There'll be times when there will be a rough patch. You won't score. You won't be happy with how you're batting. But I think it's all going to be a learning process. You got to just take the feed off it, just see what you learned, take it to the next one. And I think the most important thing that I've realized is whenever I've not done well, I've kept my enthusiasm the same way.
Right.
I've never felt that let down or something like that. And even the guys in my USA team, Taylor, Jones, Monank, I think they've played an important role too, where they give me pointers on my batting. So all that's helped. It's just been that I'm lucky enough to be in company of all these good batters and coaches that help me take my batting to the next level, if you can say that. I don't know if I'm taken to the next level, but better than what I was.
Well, I think you took it to the next level this year in minor league cricket. You scored, you averaged 46.33 at a 140 strike rate. Not to mention the fact that you led your team in wickets, taking 26 wickets this year in 13 innings bowled. So that's two per innings. That's really good stuff. And your economy was under 5. So these are really great results here. How motivated are you to try to get into the USA T20 squad and try to earn your way into that squad as a regular?
Yeah, that's something definitely on my mind. Also, I think during the minor league last year, it was the time when they didn't pick me for the T20s, so which meant that I had to come back to the minor league and do well. There was
Right.
that extra motivation for me to do even better because I was very disappointed that in spite of doing well in the 50 over games, I didn't get picked for T20s. So I had to come back and prove that I can do well in the minor league. In terms of playing T20 50 overs, it's something that's not in my control. Like I'm obviously wanting to play, but I know it will come at some point in the future. But at that point, I want to be ready. So all I can do right now is stay in the present and just make sure I'm ready for that moment because I'm sure it'll come at some point. So at that point, I'll be I'll have to be ready to seize the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I mentioned before, a lot of great stiff competition throughout the country in that role. You got to be able to bat to set yourself apart, and you got to be able to field. And you're a very, very good fielder. I've had conversations with people here in Morrisville. Who do you think's the best fielder in the country? Your name comes up a lot. And you know, there was a time when USA Cricket had Kareem Agor, yourself, and Hayden Walsh Jr. in the same team, and it was a brief period of time, but that is absolutely phenomenal when you think about it. Like how did you guys ever lose?
Yeah, those two guys are phenomenal athletes too. I mean, Walsh, he's so quick across the turf. I don't think I've seen anybody field as well as him. I think it's their work ethic as well. Even they're hard workers. I've been
Yeah.
to Antigua a couple of times to play for a club there. So I played against the team that those two play for. We used to train together there and then play against each other. So it was fun times. I got to see how they train and different cultures that there is over there. Um, yeah, it was fun. When it was all three of us, it was just amazing to be in the infield. And then you had other good fielders as well. So I think that was one of the reasons we just enjoyed our cricket and just made sure nothing was scored off the in circle. Yeah.
What's more fun to you, fielding, bowling, or batting? Which one do you enjoy the most?
If you ask me to do one particular thing the entire day, I think it would be bowling. I could bowl all day. Yeah, I just love to bowl.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's so I got to see you play at Church Street Park, obviously. Got to see Hayden play at Church Street Park, Kareem. I've seen all three of you play there. It's a great ground. One of the things that highlights to me while we're talking about fielding is how everybody talks about how important turf is, how important the hybrid wicket is a great development around the country. We need more of these, but it doesn't do you too much good to have good turf or a nice hybrid wicket on a ground that's where the outfield's no good.
Mm.
The outfield makes so much difference in the ability to learn how to play properly, how to play good cricket shots, and also how to field and how to field confidently.
Right.
You don't want to run around on a bumpy, lousy ground with your head looking up in the sky, trying to catch a ball. You could step on something or you could hurt yourself pretty easily, and there goes your summer. So
Mm.
Church Street Park kind of highlights that to me, how important how important a good outfield is for fielding practice. How you really can't learn how to be a good fielder without a good ground.
That's true. I think Church Street is one of the best grounds I've played in the country. Just not for the wicket. The wicket is very sporting wicket. You have enough in it for the bowlers. You play good shots. There's good value for runs. The outfield is of good size. It's no less than 60, 65, which is perfect. And the atmosphere too. Like you always feel like you want to go back there and play when those crowds are watching. The T20s that we played there, it was buzzing right through. Um, but coming back to fielding, yeah, you want grounds that can suit that can help you be a better fielder. So there are not many grounds in the country apart from three four different facilities where you can go say, okay, I'll go improve my fielding. All the club cricket that you see here, it's on grounds where the grass is either 2 or 3 feet high or there's no grass at all. But
Right.
I think if you really want to improve at fielding, it's not that hard because the basics still remain the same. You can go to any Astro wicket, not a wicket, Astro turf, the artificial grass grounds, or the grounds without grass, and just do the basic catches, high catches, running backward, moving
Right.
sideways. Once you get hang of that, then it only gets easier when you go to the better grounds,
Sure.
because better grounds, if you have done enough fielding on the worst grounds, the ball comes and falls into your hands.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, you're just catching even if you don't want to, because the outfield is so nice, it just comes out nice.
Right.
So I think it's about doing the dirty work in the dirty wickets or the dirty grounds that helps you when you go onto the better grounds.
Some people just don't slide well. They don't know how to slide well. You have to learn these things. You got, it's like you said, go to an AstroTurf somewhere, go to a nice flat safe place and practice those things so that you can take them into your games. But yeah, fielding is such a, in my opinion, often overlooked aspect of the game in this country. When I go to club games or the little bit of cricket I've played, I've noticed how little emphasis there is on the fielding, and I think that's something that, like you said, it's something you can work on with a buddy. You can get a friend and work on your fielding. I know, like I said, the little bit of cricket I played, before any fielding innings would start, I would always want to get 3 or 4 really difficult plays to practice. A couple of really, really high ones that I could practice catching, a couple that I had to run for. Just because I would always feel good that now I've already tried these tricky things. Now let's just go and play regular cricket and see what happens. Yeah, I don't know about you, but whenever this was the same in baseball, I would always imagine running and diving and catching something. So I think, because you got to stay involved in the game, you might see 30 balls before one comes your way.
Yeah, that's true. That's so right. I think that's a trick. Like if you want the ball to come to you, that's when you're going to be a best fielder or a very good fielder. The
Right.
moment you don't want the ball to come to you, that's when the ball comes to you, but you don't do well. I think that happens in very crunch situations where some people just don't want the ball to come to them, and that's a
Right.
mindset too. Like if you don't want it to come to you, better be ready because it's coming your way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's about how much you enjoy fielding.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of enjoying more than anything else, and then the anticipation and just being out there with the lads and just having a good time. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know how that feels too. There have been times I've been in the field and I didn't really want it to come to me, because
And that comes to you, right?
and then it comes to and it'll be something like, I know that I'll be playing in an area where I know there's a big anthill, a fire ant hill, like somewhere around my feet. And I'll be like, please don't hit it over this direction. I don't want to get bit by a bunch of fire ants, But I mean, obviously at the international level and at minor league cricket, that's not as big of a concern. Fire ants don't come into play too much.
No fire ants, no trees hanging inside the boundaries, no big patches of puddles with water. So it's an easier thing to do when you're fielding in better grounds, like you said.
Yeah. So I do have a question from a fan, Cameron, who's a member of a Discord that I belong to. He wanted to ask you, your bowling stats improved significantly in the second minor league cricket season. I'm curious if there was anything specific that you changed that led to that improvement. So we did a little bit talk about how you're always working to get better, but what did you specifically work on, if you did?
Yeah, I think the difference between I would also like to say the difference between the first and the second season. I think in the first season, I was constantly with the team, so I didn't get to play as many games that I would have wanted to. I think I just ended up playing 3 or 4 games, and most of them were on the Astro wicket. It's not an excuse again, but I think it's the difference to spinners bowling on an Astro wicket or a turf wicket.
Right.
Even this season, I think we played 3 to 4 games on Astro. The main difference I would say is just being more aware of my bowling. I think it just comes with experience, because the more you play, the more you learn about yourself. And I think this time around, I was more ready with respect to the plans that I had. If I was bowling in power plays, what kind of lines I would be bowling, what fields I would be bowling with, and also I think what helped was this time around I would get prepared with respect to who I was bowling against. I think that's one thing I didn't do the first year. This time around, I made sure I watched a lot of videos as to who I'll be bowling to when I come in the first power play, who I'll be bowling in the middle overs, and also what kind of shots are their strengths. So that's something I did more in this season, where I would see what their strengths and weaknesses were, and that helped me more than anything else, because you tighten up the ends that they were going to hit to, and they need to try something else.
Right.
In T20, the onus is on the batter to score. So you just bowl in the good areas and ask him to hit from the good areas. It's always going to be harder. I
Right.
think I took the risk and reward too. I was kind of very mindful about when I can take those risks, about if I need to go for a wicket or just hang back, just bowl a defensive line, wait for him to do a mistake. And even on Astro, when we played in Chicago, I think if it was a year earlier, I would have gone for wickets straight away. And on Astro, there have been times where I've gone for runs because I went for wickets. But this time around, I made sure I held back, just made sure you bowl defensive and make them do the mistakes because it's small outfields,
Right.
Astro, there's nothing on it. So I think it's just those small mindful things that I'm bored about. I think those changes helped a lot. And just before the season started, me and Sushant would go to the grounds that we were playing in, even in Dallas, on the Astro wickets, and do scenarios on that same ground, even if it meant hopping over the fence. So we would hop over the fence, go to scenarios there just to get a sense of how big the boundaries are for batting, and also what kind of lines work on that particular Astro wicket and things like that. That helped a lot. Yeah, I'm just thankful it came together well for the last season.
Well, yeah, that's fascinating stuff. Hearing what you're putting into this, the thought that you're putting into this, it makes a lot of sense to me. And minor league has created, basically a database where you can look at players that you're about to face. You can watch the old watch the old games, and you can see what those players like to do. That's pretty impressive. I like that. I think that's part of the modern game. That's part of modern sports, is you have this ability to research if you want to.
Right, exactly. I think, yeah, in the first year, I don't know if it was me just not wanting to research or if I've evolved in such a way that I want to make sure who I'm fighting against and what strength they have. I think that's helped me a lot too. Yeah, we constantly do that when we play for the USA team, but even here, I've kind of done the same things here. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's great. So last time on the show, I had Shadley Menschkolkwijk, and he was talking to me about how he came to the USA, his story. And he told me that he ran into you. He met you in South Africa when you were there training. You exchanged numbers, and he communicated with you quite a bit, leading up to while he deliberated on whether or not he was going to make this move to the USA, to play minor league and major league cricket. Now, he says he doesn't regret it at all. It was a great decision. He's very happy here. But that was pretty cool when he told me that you were the first person that he met. Basically, I was like, oh, well, that's a pretty lucky draw to get to run into you, because you're a very helpful guy. You're a genuine guy. You're not going to brush him off or anything. So how did all that go for you?
Yeah, that's a funny story. It's so good to see him do well here in the US, and I'd have never thought that I would see him in the US and play with him here in Houston, out of all places. So this was way back in 2018 or 17, just before I made my debut for the US team.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there was a selection camp coming up in Houston for the team, and just before that, it was the winter, and in New York there were hardly any places for me to practice. So I figured I would go to South Africa and just go train with the first class team there. So as it turned out, I went to the Free State, and they had Shadley, they had Connie, and a few more guys. Gauss was there too, and all of them were in their setup. And I was there for a month, and I bowled to them in the nets hours after hours. And they were all very nice guys, very down to earth guys, and I enjoyed myself there. I think Shadley was doing really well back then too. And then a year later, I see Shadley here in Houston. I'm like, what the hell is happening here? But it's good that they're they're getting that opportunity to play here, because ultimately all of us love the sport and we all love to play the game. And you would go places to play the game, and when he just played in the Nepal Premier League as well, right? So it's good to
Yes.
see him as well. Yeah, to showcase his talent wherever he goes. Um, it's But the hard thing was, like, I was like, are we going to play together in the US, out of all places? You're playing here, and I was in India. And yeah, life's funny. So yeah, that
Yeah.
I met him there for the first time. Yeah.
Right. And he's actually almost eligible to play for USA now. So you
Mhm.
might eventually actually play with him on Team USA as well, which would be really interesting. I'm sure you would have never imagined that.
Right. Yeah. Life is funny. I think just the kind of stories that life throws at you. Like, who would have thought that 5 years ago he's playing in a South African first class team, and then all of a sudden we're here together now. Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, it is cool. Cricket is really neat because it's an international sport, but it's also kind of a small world, cricket. And I always meet somebody that knows someone I know through cricket. And it's amazing how that goes. I meet someone from Barbados or something, and I know two or three people they know. It's such a special thing about cricket, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a good community to be part of. I think it's easier to communicate with people who play cricket. Like you just find ways to just speak to them and just get your just have a good time and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got the draft coming up in just a little bit over a month. Pick somebody that you want to play with. If you could pick any international player in the world currently playing cricket, who would you want on your team in Major League Cricket?
Um, Currently playing, I would say I want MS Dhoni. That's what to play with. Yeah. I think it's just the way he's played his cricket for the last 10, 15 years. I know he's not playing for the Indian team anymore, but he's still playing with CSK, right? So I would love to pick his brain on what his thought process is during the games, after the games, just
Right,
the way he carries himself on and off the field. Like it's so easy to get carried away with what he's achieved, but you
right.
don't see any controversies, no negative stories, nothing at all. Just yeah, and his batting too, like the way he bats in different circumstances, just knows his game so well. So I'd love to pick his brain on that. Yeah.
I love looking at the highlights of him. He's pretty impressive. Obviously, I mean, I don't even have to say that. All you have to do is say his name.
He's a great ambassador. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cute.
So if you could pick anyone in the USA to play with on your team in Major League Cricket, who would it be?
I would say, how about we get maybe Ravichandran Ashwin playing in the US for 3 years and get him qualified? Like just the way he's evolved himself too, like just the way he bowls in different circumstances. Yeah, he'll be an interesting character to speak to. Yeah.
Any of the minor league players, if you could get them to play on your Major League team, who would you pick?
Oh, someone who's already here in the US?
Yeah, to play on your Major League team. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So the thing is, like, we play along each other or against each other everywhere in all these tournaments. I would say Corey would be the one. I would like to still play with Corey in the major league. Just that we
Cool.
played in the league as well. He's captain me there, so it'll be fun if I can have him in the major league in the same team.
Maybe playing for the Dallas franchise, right?
Maybe.
All right, and lastly, last question: what's your best memory playing for USA Cricket? What's your favorite memory?
In terms of team performance, I think it would be when we got our ODI status. So the game against Namibia that we won by 2 or 3 runs. I think it was 1 run.
Such a close game. It came down to a run out on the very last ball. The last ball was a run out. Sorab.
Yeah. So I think that had so much riding on that game. Like the next 2, 3 years would be dependent on what happened in that game. So when there's so much riding, there's so much pressure, then you come out on the right side of the result. That's something you'll remember for the rest of your life. And I think in terms of individual performances, I would say the hat trick against Canada stands out for me.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, that's something. And maybe the 5 wicket haul against Lancashire. Yeah.
Very cool. So you just mentioned Canada, and I did say that it was the last question, but I got one more now. How meaningful would it be for you to like reestablish an Audi Cup with Canada? Because you guys always play such amazing games against Canada.
Yeah, whenever we play Canada, I think it just brings the best out of everybody. And there's the hearts are pumping and everybody wants to do well. And you never see an easy game. If it's a 200, if it's a 250, 300, you just know it's going to go right down to the wire. It'll be nice to play the Audi Cup again, but I don't. But hopefully the logistics work out. And I know they're playing few tournaments in Malaysia. They're Pugudu now, so it'll be an added plus to play against him and see what he's done with them and see how it goes. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Canada, I love following them. You know, there's so many other players that I like personally, and I like the way that they play. You know, so it's always such a amazing the close games against Canada. They always come down to the wire.
Mhm.
Always at the end. Always something spectacular happens. Something that you would never even imagine.
Yeah, it happens all the time. All these games, even in the T20s that we saw in Carolina, both the games.
Oh, they were incredible.
The way to come back to the last over or the last wicket and then super overs. Yeah, it's just fun to be part of.
Yeah, I maintain that those are my two favorite cricket T20 games I've ever seen, were the Canada versus USA games, where we had a super over the first game and then Steven chased down 22 in the last over in the second game. Those games were amazing. And we've since had last summer at Church Street Park. Church Street Park has a knack for these close games. When the Morrisville Raptors were hosting the Philadelphians last summer, there were 2 straight super over games on consecutive days. They were the first 2 games that Liam Plunkett played in minor league cricket. And first was Philadelphia against Morrisville, and Morrisville won the super over. And the second one was Philadelphia versus New Jersey Somerset Cavaliers, and Philly won that one. And they defended 6 to win it in the super over. So it was like Church Street Park always has these close games, and so does Canada and USA. So let's get a Canada USA Audi Cup every year at Church Street Park.
Yeah, 100%. We need to get that done. Yeah. The right people will listen to it and get the logistics worked out.
There we go. I'm giving that idea away for free. All right. Well, Nosh, it's always great to talk to you. Best of luck upcoming in Namibia, in the qualifier there. You're going to face Canada again down there, right?
Yeah, they'll be there too. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we go there.
So who knows what we'll see, but we'll definitely be watching.
Yeah, Nate. Yeah, it was a pleasure. I think I enjoyed the conversation. Hopefully we can do more of these. Yeah.
I look forward to it. Absolutely. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Nate. Yeah, good time.